Welcome to another episode of Resortera Wave. It's been a while, I think more than months we've been out. We've been doing our thing, watching games. I know Oscar has been watching a lot of games. He's getting ready for the Champions League final this weekend in Turkey. But yeah, I mean, I think it's crunch time. I mean, I published several blog entries, posts on the Lejitos, a little bit analyzing the new times that we're in, or also reminiscing past successes. But in general, I mean, I think right now, uh, it's a major test for Coca. It's a strange one because they played a friendly in Arizona. The U.S. Mexico played a friendly. It was a different coach, Hudson. Hudson left, and now there's another manager. Ni sé su nombre, fíjate, that's the thing. It's
Me neither.
irresponsible from as a journalistic perspective. I know he
BJ
went.
something, right? BJ something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. He
Callahan,
was
Callahan, I think.
Callahan. So look, it's two interim managers in less than 6 months for the U.S. men's national team. They barely hired a sporting director that is coming from Southampton, I believe. Southampton was relegated recently in the Premier League, so I don't know how that looks, to be honest. But yeah, Oscar, big game, no? It's a big test, this one, the U.S. Mexico, because new coaches, uh, new faces, I would say as well, because El Tri will be composed of several new faces in 11. And I think it's one of those things, or if Coca wins, he wins a lot of credibility, and I believe a lot of like time to work his stuff. If he loses, and if the loss doesn't showcase a better face, or a better, how can I explain? O sea, que se vea mejor el equipo as how it looked in the World Cup, then he'll be in trouble, I think.
No, without a doubt. I think this is just a beginning of a new era, if you will, right? Hopefully for not only Coca but the national team in general. Especially, it's definitely time. It looks like it's going to be a pass of the baton. Especially Guardado officially announcing that came
Yeah.
through in the coming months. But yeah, we'll see.
No, and then it's also, I mean, no Herrera. I mean, right now, here's the list. No Moreno. This list that I'm showing is 33 names, and from this, it's going to boil down to 23. I think it's pretty straightforward, based on the reports, who the 23 will be. Um, you know, what is surprising about Coca, to a certain extent, I think, is with the defense. No, he's really going with the youth. I mean, Araujo is not part of the Nations League roster, and you could say that Araujo is the oldest in this group of defenders. Um, there was rumors that I haven't heard the confirmation, but for example, Chiquete, from Chivas, wasn't in this list because he was sustaining an injury. But yeah, look, Romo is set as a defender, so it kind of sort of tells you that there is a notion that Romo could be a defender in a backline of three. If it is the case that Coca goes with that, I mean, he used it in the last game against the U.S. So it is something to consider in this match against the U.S. No, but I think what we see here is it is a transition, no, some use basically.
No, without a doubt. I'm happy. ¿Cómo se dice? Guzman from Monterrey got in because I
Yeah.
think Coca is open to players who are in form right now. You mentioned Chiquete. I think he should probably be there over. I mean, I take out Araujo from America. Um, Israel Reyes. I didn't like him with
In
Club
the
America
Liguilla, who wasn't
transition.
that top?
Transition. I think you mentioned to me before, Nayib, in our chats that I just don't think he's a natural defender. He's like a backline at three, like you said. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why. But I put him more in the midfield.
Yeah, he
But
has a good, yeah,
overall,
buena salida tiene Reyes.
yeah, that's true. But uh, I don't know. This is for I think for me for being biased. I think the whole inverted conversation right now with the world and playing out from the back. It's great. If a defender you have that, it's phenomenal. But that's at the highest level, not even my opinion. So in my case, with the national team and our caliber players, you gotta get the players with the focus on who is the best defender, like actual defensive qualities, because it really makes no point if we're not a team that can really do the tiki taka play out from the back. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
no, I think it's just command of the game, no, especially when you have the possession of the ball. Because this week also with what happened with Leon and LAFC, what I think was really, really special about Leone was the command they had with the ball, especially with the defenders and the defensive minded midfielders.
But how
Something
many of them were Mexican too? We got to think about the.
Fidel Ambris was Mexican and he did pretty well in the midfield. And I was surprised, to be honest. But like you said, yeah, it's true. There wasn't that many Mexicans. There was Colombians, Tecillo, Barreiro. Those were um, foreigners, no? Pero yo creo que la salida in Mexican football is something that is something part of its game, no? Como que no nos gusta the booting, no? The booting the ball out from the back.
No. And I think you said it to me perfectly one time. In our region, we're kind of forced to be on the ball like that and be able to play out from the back because, I mean, at the goal kicks, we're not gonna get that high press unless it's Canada or the United States national team.
Yeah.
And how many times out of 10, or how many times out of those games in CONCACAF do we actually get to play them? One or twice if we're lucky. So, but
Yeah, that's
overall,
another
it's a good
thing.
list, though. Overall, I think it's a positive list. Midfielders worry me a little bit, but I'm still kind of confused with the list. With the Nations League, the Gold Cup, some players are going to be involved with the Nations League, and then some are not going to be involved with the Gold Cup. So we'll see. But I think that'll probably be the biggest game the whole summer, besides the knockout phases of the Gold Cup against the U.S. this next week.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of what happens in that game against the U.S. next week in Las Vegas will kind of play out how everything goes through the summer because I feel that if they lose against the U.S., it creates doubts, no, and it's gonna be a long camp. There's some players that are gonna be there from now because as we're doing this podcast on June 7th, there is a friendly in Mazatlan against Guatemala, the first ever game that El Tri plays in Mazatlan and El Kraken. So there's gonna be some players involved there that are gonna be in all the three in this long camp, but it's like 41 days or something. So it is tiring so it is important to start off well, and it couldn't been tougher to start. I mean, you're starting against the US. If you lose, then things start complicating. And then the group, in my opinion, in the Gold Cup is not so easy as it looks on paper. No, I think it will be complicated because as you just said, Oscar, the teams are going to sit back, all of them, and then you got to be creative. And that leads to another question. I mean, I was really surprised that a player like Lainez and Alvarado were left out entirely. They're not in the Nations League and they're not in the Gold Cup. They're just involved in the friendly against Guatemala in Mazatlan and the friendly against Cameroon in San Diego. Um, with Linus, I understand because it hasn't been his best year overall. I'm talking about the start of last summer to May. Um, I understand he being left out, but with Alvarado, it changed a lot in the Liguilla with Chivas. Versatile midfielder. He could play wing back, great movements. I don't understand why Coca left them out, and I think he could be a big miss for El Tri comes these two, the Nations League and also the Gold Cup.
No, without a doubt. Yeah, Alvarado would be the. I mean, to be honest, do you know if Charlie's going to be in the Gold Cup and Nations League?
Yeah. Charlie will
So,
be involved in those two.
see, those are one of the things where I'm with you. I'm totally confused as well. I don't know. I'm kind of a lost words in that aspect because, like you said, Alvarado, even if he wasn't, even if Chivas got exited out earlier, he has done way more than what Charlie has done, even during the Tata era, during the last part of his season going into
Yeah.
the World Cup. I mean, even he's done more than Cervantes for me from Santos too. So I don't know. It's a complicated one, and then from on a national team level too, you're still trying to figure out kind of like what is you're going to be your best system. And like you said, Alvarado can play like basically anywhere. He's one of those players that you can literally slot in any system. So it's kind of weird why he wasn't included, other than the
Yeah.
fact that he's maybe getting a move to Europe, which is he doesn't want to mess up the process. That's the only other reason why I think he's not
No, no,
going to
no.
be included.
It could be that. Um, it's a strange one. And look, I understand that the World Cup that Alvarado had wasn't, when he came off the bench, it wasn't influential in the game that much.
That
But
wasn't
I,
everyone name though, so it's a
yeah,
poor excuse.
yeah. But even I can say that Martin wasn't influential either. Even if he scored a goal, he scored a goal against Saudi Arabia. But in the other two games, there wasn't nothing that happened with
Oh no,
Martin.
no, that's what I meant. Like I think that goes for everyone. I think the other one too is Guti from. He
Oh
was
yeah,
supposedly
Guti.
in his great form, and look at him when he tried to replace Guardado. It was just, am I again?
And look,
I don't want to go into a rabbit hole, but he's one of the reasons why we lost too. But keep
yeah,
going.
and Gutierrez is not even included in this list, which is another thing too. You notice, I mean, Gutierrez is one of the Europeos that is not even considered for the friendlies against Guatemala and Cameroon. When you look at the forwards now, quick, Antuna has been important. De La Rosa has had minutes with Coca. But I think the key will be Santi. No, I think a lot of the eyes will be on how he takes on the role as one of the main strikers in the team. It didn't start so well in Suriname because he missed a penalty. But that's part of the pressure. He's gonna be put on the spot, and he has to really capitalize on the scoring chances that he will have.
Yeah, that comes with the territory. I mean, right now that not only because he was in that conversation, but there were a lot of talks because he beat or did he equal the Mexican with the most goals in the season
And then he beat it.
with Chicharo and Luis Garcia.
He's the top one.
Yeah, so I think he got like 22, 23, and Chicharito was similar age, and I think he had more pressure because he was playing with Manu, and he just came off starting a Champions League final against arguably one of the best teams that have ever played against Barcelona, and he came to the World Cup, and I thought he kind of like stepped up to the plate, quite honest, and hopefully Santi can translate that too and all the
Remember,
pressure.
remember that year? I think it was when was it? If I'm not mistaken, it was 2011 or 2013, 2011, I think. Well, that's when Giovanni scored a nice goal against the U.S. The goal on Tim
2011.
Howard, 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that and Chicharito scored, and Chicharito started the games. But I remember that it was pressure. He had to show up. I mean, he was coming from Man U after playing a Champions League final against Barcelona that
He
they
benched
ended up losing.
Berbatov, dude. That's nuts. People who think
Yeah.
he's a tronco, that's not something
So
cualquier
so
tronco hace.
looking at the dimensions, it is different what Chicharito achieved. But Santi arrives in a similar situation, no?
Exactly. Yep.
Scoring goals in Europe, being an important, winning the title with Feyenoord and the Netherlands. So a lot of the tension is there. But it's interesting going back to 2011 and coming now and sort of comparing both rosters. Now that I think back, you had Giovanni there that was in good level, maybe inconsistent with his club minutes, but he was nevertheless a talented young player still. Guardado, I remember, was important there. Torrado still had an influence in the midfield, if I'm not mistaken.
And then
Um,
also, if I'm not mistaken, that was when remember we had like that red meat contamination thing. So we had like 8 first team quote unquote players that were involved. So Ochoa wasn't there. I want to say Massa wasn't there, and he was still in Europe. A bunch of players. I forget. We would have to go back, but
yeah,
I
that's a
forget.
good one. That's a good note you bring up. And so right now, I mean, I think it's, in my opinion, it does feel like one of the youngest, where the transitioning looks so obvious, no? Because there's so many old faces that are no longer there. I mean, we've been through so many rosters that included Hector Moreno, Hector Herrera, Guardado. Um, you know, I still can't get over the fact of Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez was there so many years that you still kind of still see the void. No, the void hasn't been able to be filled, and certainly, when I was writing a recent an article 2 days ago or a blog post, Um, the last time I really felt El Tri was playing at a top level was when they beat Germany, and that was 2018. Since then, to be honest, it's been really like a straight line, and it's kind of a little bit gone down and then a little bit up, but it's not going upwards, you know. And so I think that's the challenge right now where El Tri is, um, of how do you raise the bar and just show some type of improvement from from 2018. I mean, we're literally 5 years after 2018 now. So I think that is the big challenge that El Tri faces right now.
Hmm. I mean, I'm trying to think back a little bit. You're saying the 2018 match against Germany, that's the last good match we ever played?
Yeah,
I thought we played good against Brazil, to be honest.
but Brazil in the same World Cup though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
technically, it's
okay,
still
that
still
era.
this still
That
that
yeah.
era,
Okay, well, okay.
because even with
Yeah,
Tata, his first year, you know, it was rocky. I mean, he got the wins, but it wasn't like comfortable wins, you know, or you know, there was never a moment with Tata that I saw some type of improvement or notable improvement. It was the total opposite. It went downwards. I mean, you could tell the friendly against the Netherlands maybe was a high point with Tata, but it was the COVID times as well, no? So it was like you really didn't see that much evolution from that. It was just so sporadic.
yeah,
Um, en cambio, with Osorio, I remember the Belgium game, the Belgium friendly in 2017, I believe. That was like a good benchmark, and then he exceeded expectations by beating Germany in the World Cup. So you see there
yeah, yeah. You're
the
right.
progression, no?
Yeah,
And here right now is there's no
brand new.
progression really.
Yeah, I think with the Tata situation, the problem with him, as soon as he won that Gold Cup, he kind of assumed like these are my guys no matter what, even if on the field it's not going to be there anymore. I mean, you saw so many players that Tata was so faithful to, and
Yeah,
it's a 50-50 kind of blame because Tata really believed in them and then the players didn't deliver at the end. And I think the best match we ever saw from Tata was that first half against, was it Ecuador or Colombia? I forget. I remember we were up like 2-0, 3-0 maybe, and
might
then they
have been
came back and beat
Colombia.
us. Yeah, and we said he even said he's like, this is the best game I've ever played with the national team in my era. And I think, not calling up the informed players and, his national team just became static where there was a style, but it wasn't really a style that necessarily fit or
Yeah, I mean
that would help the
because
national team. And you saw it at the World Cup too, because with Poland we played a certain way. We went Jose Mourinho completely against Argentina, and we were pretty organized. And then we tried to go back to Concacaf mode against Saudi Arabia. So I think that was a perfect example.
yeah, no, y deja tú. He had the whole situation of the Nations League and Gold Cup in 2021, no, and of course he lost both games in extra time against the U.S., which I think it's important to note, no, that yeah, Mexico lost against the U.S., but they had to go to extra times, penalties, whatever, I believe, or si me acuerdo bien, ya no me acuerdo tan bien.
Penal? No,
I
extra
think the
time.
Gold Cup was extra time. Y también parece, y el Nations League, I think it might have been penalties, ¿no?
All I think Nations League. I
'Cause-
forget which one. All I know is Guardado missed a penalty to tie it, and then we lost in extra time. I forget which game that was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember the Nations League in 2021 was in Denver, Colorado. And the Gold Cup final, I think it was in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. But both games were lost, and that's where Tata lost a lot of credibility, no? And it wasn't like you said. I mean, he trusted players that perhaps he wasn't supposed to trust on. There was un bajón de juego de certain players. Like you could really tell that the players weren't at a good level. So now it's sort of interesting seeing how it will look now, no, 2 years later, and if there is some possible improvement, because even that I cannot say because Coca just barely started as a manager, and in the first games it hasn't been so positive, especially the draw against Jamaica. It wasn't
And he's
so.
mixed it up. He's mixed it up a little bit too much, but that's what I'm not too worried about because he's testing out as many
He
players he
needs to,
can and as
¿verdad?
many systems. But I think kind of to do devil's advocate, I thought the game against the U.S. I thought we were really good against in the first half. I think it was that I saw.
Yeah.
I forget which half it was, but one of them. I really liked what I saw, and then it kind of like started to go down a little bit. But that's because he started making changes. But I do think once he figures out, I think that's going to be our style. But I think we're just once he commits to one, he'll work from there. And if it works, it works, and if it not, then we're just going to be in the same boat we're always in.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that takes us really to what to expect, no? Like, for example, which players do you think have to be on top of their game for El Tri to get a result against the US, do you think? And I think Ochoa has to be on top of his game. Um, Cesar Montes, who, was relegated with Espanyol recently, so I don't know how that might affect a little bit the confidence. Edson needs to be on top of his game. Chavez,
Luis Chavez, yeah.
yeah, Chavez, who has been the constant, I think, with Mexico. With El Tri, I think the constant has been Chavez. Even when things were going really bad with Tata, he was kind of like the positive, the main positive out of everything, no? Um, Santi, I think, has to be on top of his game. Uh, and then we'll see how he mix it up. What does Antuna start on one of the wings? I mean, he started that game against the US and he scored a goal. Um, you know, the level of Cordova, and I know that you're gonna say, well, it's just a little bit of it just happened in the liguilla, but I think
Well, to be
it's
honest, Nayib, if I still think he's a quality player. I think he's better than Linus ever was, in my opinion.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I think also Orbelin is gonna be a
Orbelin is
big
important.
game for him because it's either gonna be. I hate to say it because he's been with the national team so long. It's kind of like a break or bust at this point because he's gonna be one of the leaders at this point. He's coming from a good season, maybe not the highest league, but it's still in Europe. So I think he has to deliver, and he's gonna have to be the one that not only be a leader, but he's gonna have to just command that midfield now or wherever he's going to play because you just have to have a presence at this point with the national team. Otherwise, we have to move on, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
and
the coach.
that's a good because he was given the number 10 in that last Gold Cup that El Tri played with Tata Martino. He was the number 10, and there was criticism of like, why isn't he playing well and blah blah blah. Well, this is a moment for Orbelin. I mean, there's no tomorrow. I mean, when you look at the list, you look at the players available, he's probably up there with one who, like you said, one of the players with most experience. League title with Chivas, league title with Cruz Azul, league title with the team from Athens. It's a really good resume for a player of his age. Way better than, for example, Guti, who's a talented player without a doubt, but Guti is clearly erased from the picture at the moment, unless a new manager comes in and believes that he will be important when that moment comes. No.
No, without a doubt. And then also, I just think we're also going to need just. I think this just is going to go with from the opponent as well, and then just the way we play. But we're just going to need someone who's going to progress the ball forward at least as well,
Yeah.
which is going to be vital in my opinion. Because I mean, we've seen Edson's career in Europe. He's been pretty criticized in that aspect where he's not going to be the guy who's going to do those through balls, break the lines, and just carry the ball forward. He's more like the interceptor. So that's where Luis Chavez or Belin we're just talking about, or God knows even Charlie, which
Yeah, which
you
he
already know
could
how I feel
potentially.
about him. But also the fullbacks is. I think it's just a big thing for the team in
So
general. The
look, this
fullbacks as
is
well.
this is an 11 I'm throwing out there. I'm not saying that this is the best 11 available. This is one idea that I have, which could be totally wrong. I mean, because like we said, I mean, he kind of likes the back line of three, and this one, I'm not considering the back line of three that much. I mean, it's just a back line of four. So I got Julian Araujo, Montes, Guzman from Monterrey, and Arteaga. I picked Julian Araujo because I think Julian has been the best right back so far in the Coca era. He's the guy that has been, the most, I think, most minutes played or somewhat of from a right back. It's kind of sad because he hasn't really played for a club since since
January.
January. Yeah, he hasn't played for his club for since January.
Plus,
But
you already
he
know what you get with the other guys. They've gotten so much opportunity, so might as well throw him in there at this
and
point.
then the four midfielders is Edson and Chavez in the center, Orbelin on the right, and Gallardo on the left, and up top Cordova and Santi. I don't see Martin and Santi, but I feel like that's gonna happen. Martin and Santi up top. I decided to go with Cordova and Santi. A little bit. Cordova more free as like a 10 sort of player, and Santi's gonna be your only striker up top.
Mm.
And as we know, Orbelin tiene llegada, and the key will be Gallardo. I feel Gallardo
You
will be
think?
more offensive with Coca in a lineup like this.
Interesting. Has Abdiaga played at all with Coca in the Coca era?
I think he played in the Suriname game. He might have played in the Suriname game.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting if how much he leans towards players who are like in form right now. Probably the guys who just had a really good tournament in Liga. Because in that case, Cordova, I think, how do you not put him in there?
Yeah. But also, you got to consider when he was the Tigres manager at the start of the season, Cordova wasn't even considered.
Yeah.
And now, it's a really strange situation because now, as Mexico manager, and clearly, Cordova was the best Mexican in the Liguilla. I mean, there's nobody that's gonna say you're wrong by saying that. I mean, the goals, the numbers, the influence he had. I mean, it was pretty special. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see if Coca will be willing to give him, the starting role in the national team.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it was up to me, Naib, I'd put Edson in the back line at 3. That's how I know I'd be excited about the national team is realizing Edson is not a center defensive mid, especially when we're progressing the ball. And I would put Chavez and Orbelin in the midfield.
Yeah.
Is Ponchito gonna get called up, or did he not get called
No,
up
no,
already?
no, no, no. Ponchito's injured.
Uh,
Ponchito's. I think that dude's done, to be honest, because
oh, was that bad? I didn't. I thought he was. I thought
yeah,
it was just
he
a
had
leg injury.
surgery and stuff, and look, it's not the first time he's had surgery.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think Ponchito, unless a miracle happens, but I think he's not part of the picture anymore. I mean, I think el tren ya se fue for him, to be honest. I mean, I think the
Yeah,
injuries
that.
and
Yeah, it's hard.
and
That's a hard one.
if there was a moment, it was now. Because there's so much change going on with the team.
I would still put Orbelin and Chavez in that double pivot, to be
Yeah.
honest, because Orbelin played that position.
And then who would you put
And
on the right side?
Orbelin,
No, but
or
if it's Orbelin and Chavez,
like above them,
yeah, like
I think I'd
ahead of,
probably put Cordova. I think he's
and
probably
put
the best
Martin and
case,
Santi together.
or Santi, and to be honest, someone who's gonna. Well, it is hard too because we don't know how Coca is gonna do with the press. Is he gonna press at all? Because in that case, if we did the press, I think Antuna probably fits that bill a little bit more.
No, yeah, that's
Help him
true.
do helps him do the dirty work for Santi, and Santi's just there to. But also Santi's too. People forget. People are watching his season. His link up play this season was, oh my god, really really good as well. So who knows if that'll play a part. So he might not score as many goals, but he'll open up the play as well.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult one. It's just the thing too. We don't have the personnel midfielders to even. That's why I even mentioned Pochito because he's the closest one that I think breaks the lines the best
No, and
for
look, I haven't,
Mexico.
I haven't in my 11. I don't include, for example, Vega either, because Vega, as
I
we saw
wouldn't
in
put
the
him because
liguilla, he was like 60%, 75% physically. I mean, and like you said right now, against the U.S., you will have to press, especially if they're going to try to play from the back. And like we saw, it's not like they're gonna be. I mean, I think their starting defense might include, Miles Robinson from Atlanta, uh, Zimmerman from Nashville. Those are names that are that come to my brain right now. Um, they're not so comfortable on the ball. You can create damage if you press correctly against them. Um, and so that's a good point you bring up. I mean, Vega won't press, so Vega can be considered. Another one we haven't mentioned, Chiquito Sanchez. Do you put Chiquito with Chavez in the
I like
double
him a
pivot?
lot, but
I mean, because of that synergy that they have already. They played
no, no,
together for
no.
so many years.
I agree. I agree. So you would want Luis Chavez, Eric Sanchez, or Orbelin, I guess, a midfield of that, and then Santi and whoever.
Yeah, so in that case, I would go with Chavez and Chiquito, Orbelín and Gallardo, and then up top would be Cordova and Santi. But if it's a back line of five, like if it's a back line of five, then I think it is Julian Araujo, Montes, Edson, Guzman, those three, and then Gallardo. That's five already. Chiquito and
Chavez,
Chavez, Orbelín maybe. So that's eight. A ver si me...
Santi, and someone up top.
Santi and someone up top, eh?
That's the easy part, I think. Santi, we know he's a lock-in.
No,
I
and
think the
look,
center backs also you can juggle too because I mean Montes is really good on the ball. So is Edson. So is
Guzman.
Guzman. I think the
And
only thing
Guzman,
where we
yeah,
lose.
a lot was said. Guzman. I don't know if it was his fault in the goal against the U.S., but there was a little bit of miscalculation from Guzman. But of course, it was his first freaking game again, first freaking
Yeah,
game with
he
the
did great. Besides that, though, he looked really good.
Pero sí, te digo, a lot of the 11s that our viewers will see probably in the next hours or in the next days will include Martin. But I'm one that believes that Martin shouldn't be a starter. And hopefully Martin plays because it is Martin can do the pressing. I mean, I do think Martin has the capabilities of presionar la salida. Maybe Martin does more of the dirty work and he leaves Santi more, free to find the spaces, no? That's another hypothesis, no, ahorita.
Straight from a tactical point of view, Nayib, with Martin, do you think he gets a bad rep because say we win a game and he does all the dirty work and he kind of he compliments the striker whoever he's playing with and we win the game, but when we lose the game it's like what's he there for, you know what I mean? But like tactically it kind of in the team it works, it's just maybe not, I don't know, it's just not something
No,
that's
y yo creo que lo que pasa también,
because I agree
eh,
with you. I don't think he's the greatest footballer either, but I think he's such a team player without a doubt.
no,
But
he's definitely
and tactically he fits well in a team.
a team player. That's a good word you use, a team player. And I think sometimes you do need them. Um, in America, I think he shines because he was kind of around a lot of great creative players. I mean, Diego Valdez, Sandejas, and Cabecita Rodriguez, no? So he was the ideal striker to be around those players. And the main issue, and this goes back even when he was getting the starts in the World Cup, is in El Tri, he doesn't have a Diego Valdez or he doesn't have a Cabecita Rodriguez that can kind of carry the bulk of the offense usually, because here we're not asking the example that we're using about the pressing with Santi and Martin. We're not asking Martin to carry the bulk of the offense. We're asking him to press so we can generate opportunities. No, it's not like we want him to shoot and to score. No, we're gonna basically use him because he has a good physical body, so his presence has good speed, maybe good triggers. That's it. No, and I think that's where the issue lies. No, for certain elements of the game, he's useful. But I think when it comes to like, okay, do something on the offense and the one-on-one, or take a shot outside the box and hopefully hopefully it goes in. That's where he lacks. I think he's not determinant in the final third that much. I think.
Mm-hmm. I think you know what else too is going to be the issue where I don't think we really talk about, but it's kind of like the how the wingers and the fullbacks are going to be used. If you saw a lot of Santi's goals, it was a lot of crosses in from his teammates in Feyenoord, and you know that was another big issue too. We even had when Raul was in form, like even when he was on top of his game in the Premier League, we never had people who would cross in the ball as well, and that goes into the fact that I rarely saw any really big overlap runs from the fullbacks, even at the World Cup at all. Obviously,
Yeah.
Argentina that doesn't really count, but in the Tata era in general, you just rarely see balls get crossed in. Obviously, it has to do with the opponent as well because if they're just gonna sit back, they're kind of already all set to try to clear a ball that's getting crossed in. But how do we create those runs or plays where we can get runs in through a good cross or just any cross in general because we're not gonna use Santi who's like 6'2", 6'1". You know, it's gonna be hard to do the tippy tappy all the way into the goal or through balls into the goal as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's something you're gonna have to that's where you bring out the stats who has the best cross stats in the league.
No, and like if he goes with the 4-4-2, that for example on the left side, it puts a lot of responsibility on Gallardo. I mean, it's pretty obvious with the one I did. And then in terms
Julian.
of yeah, it could be Orbelin on the right, or it could be Julian. O sea, Orbelin moves more inwards, allows Julian to move up and cross. I mean, I think Julian's cross is good. Se ha visto mejor Julian's cross than Jorge Sanchez. And Kevin Alvarez is not even considered for the Nations League and Gold Cup to be, after being in the World Cup, which is quite surprising, that one. But it tells you how much confidence Coca has on Julian Araujo. I mean, Julian right now he has the keys of that right back for him. It's up to him to win it. I mean, if he fails, of course, it's la perdió él, no. But I think the opportunity is going to be there for him. Um, and I, based on what I've seen, I like Julian's cross. Maybe what might be a little bit worrying is his defense. If he does have some defensive issues.
That's all of them though. So I think everyone's at the same level in my opinion.
Yeah. So I mean that could be an issue that arises in the game. But we'll see. Like you said, I think you hit it. ¿Cómo
The
se
nail on the head.
dice? Esa mero. With Orbelin. I think Orbelin is an important player for El T right now. If Orbelin doesn't do anything, then I think he's in trouble also with in terms of like, so what are you gonna offer to the table? Um, because he's had so many opportunities and hasn't been able to sort of capitalize them. Now this is a major opportunity for him.
Do you think on the goalie situation, Nayib, since Coca is definitely he kind of seems more of like a more modern coach. If Ochoa's he's basically doesn't have anything with his feet, but then again, we don't really have anyone in the league in general right now that is really prominent with their feet. But when do you start facing that transition? Because I mean, this is the same issue where we would be complaining if Ache was in the squad, if Guardada was in the squad, but
Yeah.
because Ochoa is still our top 5 shot stopper without a doubt. But
Yeah.
if we want to
I
progress the team, I think at some point we got to move on. I might be biased right here, but I think
no no
it's the
no,
reality
but
too.
it's I think it's a debate that's gonna be there. No, and look, it's happened with us with other players, like with Rafa. It's like we could never move away from Rafa. Um, and I think with Ochoa is the thing that helps Ochoa is what he does in Italy. I mean, if you tell, not even the most optimistic Ochoa fan would have expected what he did in Serie A. After everyone thought that he was just gonna go over there and it was over. A team that was in the relegation zone when he arrived, it was clearly that team was gonna be relegated. And then he arrives and things change. No, he had an influence, but of course other players had an influence. But he had a major one. I mean, how many fucking saves did he get? And that's the thing about Ochoa. And that's why he's
Shot
part of the
stopper.
conversation. Yeah,
It's a
shot
shot stopper.
stopper.
End of the day, you need a shot
Yeah, yeah,
stopper.
yeah. And but like I understand what you say. I mean, I just don't see Acevedo didn't have a good season. I mean, in my opinion, I think Malagon was better than Acevedo this season. And Malagon didn't even start the season with America. I mean, it slowly he got the shot, no? I mean, I think it just says a little bit about the there isn't a goalkeeper right now that really tells you that he is the clear challenger for Ochoa's starting role, because it's entirely Ochoa's right now. I mean, I don't know if he's going to arrive to the next World Cup. The World Cup is still years away, and a lot of stuff can happen. But there's not a clear challenger that you can say, okay, put Acevedo and see what happens. I mean, Acevedo got his chances in the Coca era already. You know,
He made a
and
mistake, if I'm mistaken, too, right? Did he?
he didn't. I don't know if he did a mistake. That's a
It
good
might have
point.
been not the era where he made a mistake. I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah,
where he
but
bottled it.
pero te digo, I think Ochoa right now is immovable, no, because of what he's done.
He's too clear, concrete compared to like if we say if Bachaching Guardado was in the squad and he replaced, I don't know. Well, even at this point, Nayib, I think I'd rather take Achache or Guardado over Charlie, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
No, but the thing
like
about Charlie,
even
the thing about Charlie, and then this is the reason that I think he's still part of the national team, is that he does have a lot of key passes. I think he has like 11. He had 11 in the season or something, the most in the league or something like that.
mm-hmm.
Um, but he doesn't have a presence in the midfield, you know, especially in directing the play. I mean, he's really descended a lot in the last years. I mean, maybe in 2019 he was on top, really really special, but I think instead of improving, he has um his level has gone down, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there was a time and a place where he could and maybe even be instrumental, but I just don't think we have the supporting crew to support that. Because if you put him right now, I think, to be honest, about in that 10 role, like kind of roaming to kind of do whatever you want, he fits better than Orbelin, in my opinion. But because Orbelin at least offers you the press and the defensive work, the work rate, that's why you're gonna pick him over Charlie.
Yeah, no, and as the scoring prowess too, no, with
Yeah.
Orbelin, I think has a really clear, ability to score goals.
No, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I still think, even though I'm not the biggest fan of his, he's obviously like he's one of the most technical players we have at the national in Mexico, I think, in general. But it's just one of those things at this era of football, I think, that doesn't allow him to really flourish in a team setting.
Okay, so we had a big conversation already on this game. I mean, I think we went over names, tactics,
Mm-hmm.
um, possibilities of what can happen in the game against the US. After all this we've had, do you think Coca stays as Mexico manager after the summer? Yes or no?
I say yes.
You say yes? Now, just to have a 50-50 here, I will say no. I
No,
think so.
okay.
You say yes,
I
I'll
was gonna
say
say,
no.
I already know you're gonna say no.
I don't see Coca staying as manager for that long. I mean, the FMF, they did everything backwards. They got the coach first before the president. Where else do they do that kind of stuff? Well, they got the technical, the director of national teams and director of youth national teams um, after they got the manager. I think there's a lot of
Uncertainty still.
uncertainty
Are you just
still.
not convinced? But what's the difference? Actually, no. I was gonna say, what was the difference from when Juan Carlos Osorio came in versus uh,
Coca.
Coca?
That's a good question,
And
actually.
Osorio had it way, way worse. The only thing that's kind of the reason why it's salvaged for me because he came from Brazil. He came from Sao Paulo, which is a huge club. If Mexican fans don't know, that's a huge, huge
Yeah, yeah.
pressure.
And
Probably even more than
that's a huge feat to reconsider. A Colombian coach coaching
exactly.
in
So that's
Brazil.
why I think he gets a bad rep too. Shout out Juan Carlos Osorio, but he came in and very similar to what Coca does, and both really modern. They like the stats and everything like that. But what's the difference? Juan Carlos Osorio also lost his Gold Cup to Jamaica, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think over was that his first big test?
No, his first big test. That's a good question. I mean, ahorita, because we're going way back, yo.
Or was it the qualifiers? Because even the qualifiers, he passed with flying colors. He did
No, but
the
the
best.
qualifiers, when he beat the US in Columbus, 2-1 with a goal from Rafa, his tenure went up the roof. So you see what I mean? That's the thing that can happen with Coca as well. If El Tri beats the US and there's some convincing tactical approach, he will remain as Mexico manager. I know I know it's crazy that it's all depending on one game and one result, but that's how Mexican football works. That's how the team has worked for so many years. I
But
mean,
from a tactical standpoint, like there's only so much tactically you can do. You know what I mean? To a certain
yeah.
point, even to a certain phase of the field or the zones of the field. But when is it like we're just probably not that good? And CONCACAF, we're at their level now. We're at the CONCACAF level with a Costa Rica, a Canada. Because right now I think the U.S. is really really strong overall.
Yeah, individually they're impeccable. I mean,
Even USA to be even USA, even Canada to be honest. So at the end of the day, I think it's our
you know,
level. It's
and look, it was a red flag the Jamaica game. I mean that game, the drawing in Azteca against Jamaica, and Jamaica, they had players playing at a high level, no, and top clubs in Europe. So that's what I'm telling you. I mean, the panorama is changing. So maybe the demands that you put on the national team coach might not seem reasonable. But with that being said, there is a history behind this. I mean, it's not like we're saying stuff to the air that can
it's
can
happened to like all the other, like you said, Juan Carlos Osorio is the same thing. Did he have a specific style that was prominent and like you could see it? In a sense, there was an idea and a foundation that was always there. But same thing with that, there was never no real distinct style. And I think it's a combination of our region, unfortunately. Hopefully, in the coming year, it is growing. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, I mean, the Jamaica, how many players did they have? A few players from the Prem and then from the Championship. But until we kind of beat that threshold a little bit, I mean, it's going to be hard
no.
because
And look,
there's
and I know
to
that
even do
this.
anything tactically, it's going to be almost damn near impossible.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll see. I mean, a lot can happen after that game. Everything can go to the trash, or everything can sort of
Okay,
start.
overinflated. It's like
Yeah,
there's never no
overinflated.
gray area. Like
And,
that's it.
by the looks of it, it looks like Coca, in his mind, he said it yesterday in the presser in Mazatlan. My goal is a World Cup. And look, they're not dealing with qualifiers. That's another thing. Is okay, if you're
Totally
really
forgot about that.
convinced with this man that Coca is gonna be the leader for. I mean, they make the call, or if they see something that doesn't look right in these 41 days that this camp will last, because it's literally 41 days from now to the Gold Cup and this is thinking that they'll reach the final. You know, that's another thing. If El Tri doesn't reach the Gold Cup final, I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's gonna look really tough for Coca to remain. No, that's
Osorio didn't get to the World Cup final too,
to the
so
Gold Cup final as well. So it's. But I think what helped Osorio, Oscar, was that he had that World Cup qualifying in his favor. When that failure happened in the Gold Cup,
did the good qualifier games pass through already before the World Cup, or was
yeah,
that after?
yeah, yeah. No, that was before. So because I remember that Gold Cup, he specifically said, because I actually covered that one, the whole thing. He said that was going to be a test run, and it was a test run. Edson was there. I think he was one of the main ones, because that's
Yeah,
that's what basically allowed Edson to
Chui,
reach the
he
world.
got completely erased from the national team, and fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, for some, it was like a really really important test run for the Gold Cup
Montes
roster.
is Montes in that squad?
No, I think he was with the Olympic side around
No, I
those
mean
two.
Luis Montes. Sorry.
He might have been Chapito. Yeah, he might have been.
See, okay, I remember that Gold Cup because then that's when I said Orbelin is not a A-team caliber player because he didn't do nothing in that Gold Cup. He was
Yeah, but
supposed to be one of
Orbelin
the
was
front
younger
runners.
though. Orbelin was young still.
Oh my god! Here we go. Let's move on.
Let's move on. We closed the show Resortera way, 50 minutes. We did it, 50 minutes. I mean, is there any closing thoughts, Oscar, that you have, or is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I think just overall, what a season to conclude a season. Crazy to think that this season had a World Cup in it. I totally just forgot about that. That this whole
Yeah.
season had a World Cup, which is why the Champions League is in June, which is never the case. Um, but it was just an interesting season seeing like teams like Chivas, where a team that plays with all Mexicans got to a final in a league where the amount of foreigners are in the league, and you kind of have to play with a certain amount of players, and you can kind of see the national team in a sense with Chivas Nayib. I don't know about you. I feel like I've always kind of seen that, even though it's like a hate and love relationship with Chivas sometimes because they're just like hypocrites and crybabies sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think you can really see how the Mexican footballer will excel at the highest level, which is the collective effort. Because I didn't see a single like individual performance that's going to carry the whole Chivas team. I thought it was just a complete collective effort, especially that first half. I know they lost it, but that first half was like damn near perfect. I don't know about you if you saw it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I just think that's something that hopefully, if even if you look past all their titles, I mean it's a collective effort compared to what we do with even mine. When I saw Cruz Azul, that was all Cabecita, to be honest. For a lot, Luis Romo in the midfield as well. Like a lot of individual pockets stood out compared to Chivas. It's the collective effort has to be there. Everyone has to be on the same page.
No,
My
but it
opinion.
also, I mean, that sample size, it also shows what is negative about the Mexican footballer, the mental aspect, no, not
Hmm.
being able to control the lead, not being able to sort of, okay, be calm and see ways of controlling, in those situations, a lot, when you're the press, you say, well, the fault is on the coach, because but also the player needs to take initiative, the
Exactly.
player,
Yeah.
the player on the field needs to see what is going right and what's going wrong, no, and also be able to sort of capitalize on the advantages you have, on your strengths, and then capitalize on the weaknesses of the opponent, no. And so if they notice that something worked in the first half, keep on doing it in the second half.
Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
not fall into the trap of saying, okay, well, I'll sit back, and then they're old already, they're quote unquote old, because that's one of the things that a lot of people were saying. And look, bam, you lose the game, no. So it's I think you see the las dos caras de la moneda, the Mexican football with Chivas.
Yeah.
They can be amazing, but also you they can lose focus, no, in the game. And when you look back, for example, at the gold medal win, which I think is still one of the top Mexican performances, it did help to have Corona in goal. It did help to have Salcido involved. Especially Salcido, because Salcido was a player that really had the European experience and knew how to control the pockets where Brazil is Brazil. Brazil was always going to attack you. You knew that from the start, and you just had to be able to sustain the pressure of the attacks and the blows and the surprises, and try to still create, because they still El Tri still created offense in the 70th, 75th minute. um and Chivas just stopped creating offense, when in reality Chivas really looked in the first half that they could create offense from everywhere, every part of the field, no. So those are the things that you learn, and then you see, like, okay, so how can you maximize it, no. And but like, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's really, the thing that sucks is that not that many of those Chivas players are part of the national team, especially one of the main ones of that team.
No, I mean to go back on that though, I think we've always I feel like I always bring this up in terms of yes, a lot of players on Chivas team they're not on the national team, but even a lot of them probably don't even deserve or they're not even good enough for the national team. But what they do have and what we need to how we need to approach the national team is what players fit the coach and the system and the team the best. So if that means we have to call up, maybe a player that is not the prettiest or the fancy. In this case, Henry Martin, let's just say, right? Or let's not put him because he's already been given his chance, but let's just say someone like I'm trying to think who had a good season in the league this season that probably wouldn't get like Chiquete, for example. He
Okay.
hasn't been tested at all, right? But we already have Montes or instead of Johan versus Chiquete. If Chiquete fits the system better, even though quote unquote Johan is better, even though I don't think he is, you got to bring him if he fits the system in the team, and that's what's best for the team. Same thing with Cordova or Orbelin. Orbelin in Europe, he's ripping it. He's probably better than Cordova. But if Cordova fits the team and does more for the team, Orbelin, you're on the bench. Cordova starting, and that goes to even the most prolific. If Chucky doesn't fit for the team in the collective in the system, Chucky, take a seat. Antuna, I know it sounds crazy, but if Antuna fits the system in the collective more than Chucky, I think that's what you have to do, in my opinion. At least the way that's how I
Yeah.
think in the
No,
game.
and it's hard that one to make those decisions because sometimes, I mean, that's what Martino ended up doing, no? También in the roster that he did for the World Cup is he kept Funes and Martin over Santi Jimenez because he felt that those two, and Raúl Jimenez also, because he felt that they added more to the team, no? Then you can disagree with that. I mean, it's clearly
But
that
I think
Jimenez.
that's actually, no, you're right. I was going to say, I feel like that's more
It
like
depends.
favoritism and loyalty versus a player who's actually fits, like actually quality into that aspect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I think that's really hard, though. That's really
It
hard to
is.
achieve
It is.
because there's been I mean, I think La Volpe, La Volpe kind of did that.
He did. No, he didn't kind of do it, Naive. He did do it. He put someone like Gringo Castro through to start against Argentina. That's
Yeah. No, he didn't take Cuauhtemoc because, like you said, I mean, he didn't fit the team. I mean, the team that he had built, he felt that if he included Cuauhtemoc, it wasn't gonna be the same.
even
And
Piojo did that 2014. He started Massa. Was he one of the top center backs that we had at the time? I don't think so. Like top five to start, I don't think. I think to be on the squad, yes, but I don't think to start.
yeah, no, Massa ended up doing so well.
Gallito and Montes was a perfect example. Montes was probably going to start if he didn't break his leg. Gallito just came out of nowhere, but he fit whatever the national team needed for that World Cup, and that I don't think anyone else would have fitted that any better than Gallito.
That's true. That's true. I mean, we'll see what happens with Coca. Here with Coca, he, like we said, maybe we didn't even bring up this guy from Atlas, the Cuban Mexican, Ociel.
Oh,
Ociel. Ociel might all of a sudden be a
scratch
starter.
it off. He's him and Santi. Nahib. Sorry, totally forgot about him. Him and Santi. It's hard to because sometimes you just see the regular names all the time. I totally forgot about him, but yeah, I'd start him and Santi without a doubt, no question.
¿Sabes? Ya ves. O sea, te
Forget
digo.
anyone that you just drew up.
So Ociel over Córdoba. And Córdoba, has been
Yeah, yeah, okay. In the
which
up
which
top two,
no,
yeah.
but fíjate, o sea, I remember the US game. He came in the second half. I hadn't seen that spark in a player since no me acuerdo, since Tecatito, when Tecatito was barely starting in the national team. Do something different on the ball. Try things. Be daring, ¿no? O sea, trata make them mad, make the defenders mad.
Just get forward more than anything. I mean, that's the biggest thing
So
that I've
Ociel
ever
Herrera
watched in
could,
Brazilian.
and now that you bring it up, I mean, it's two of it. I mean, Ociel could potentially be a starter in that game, a surprise starter, because a lot of people would
Chavez,
say,
Orbelin, Cordova at the 10, and Oziel and Santi up top.
yeah, that could be it.
That's what I would do.
So it's a 3-2, and then the 5 on the back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, could be it. So that's a good way to close the show. Thank you, Oscar, for your thoughts and opinions, and we'll record one maybe after the game. After the game, we'll come back, remind
Analyze,
ourselves,
yeah.
remind ourselves what we said right, what we said wrong, and then we'll take it
Real
from
quick
there.
thing, in a prediction, then what do you think's gonna happen? The U.S. Mexico game.
I think Mexico wins 1-0.
I'm gonna say it too, Nate. I'm gonna give the manager a chance. I think Because if we lose to the U.S., what is that? 3 times in a row in an
That is
official
somewhere
match?
around there, yeah. No, and like I said, I mean, I said, look, a part of me is like, okay, I want Mexico to win, but then another part of me is, I don't know, man. Based on how stuff has looked with the team, and it hasn't been rolling on the same on the right path, then I don't know. I mean, it could be a loss. If it's a loss, que no sea feo, o sea, que no se vea like a dominance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's a loss, que no se vea on dominance from the U.S. But
Well,
I want Mexico to win.
I think
Yeah.
everyone always wants them in too, but it's like I don't know. I think with the media and players, sometimes we can't separate like valid constructive criticism, if you will, versus like the reality of things and just straight like just
I
saying stuff
I
to say
think I
things.
think it hurts the U.S. that Tyler Adams is not available, because I think Tyler is really important in the midfield for the U.S., and not
Yeah.
having him changes the dynamic of things, because I feel like there's no other Tyler Adams in the U.S. He's like a player that is not replaceable. I mean, you
Hmm.
can add a different formation or something, but I feel like, for example, Weston is not the same
He needs
with
Tyler.
he needs Tyler to shine. So I think that's an advantage for El Tri heading into the game.
Yeah, and then also, if I'm not mistaken, did I read it right that they have an under 23 for the Nations League?
I
They're
believe they're
using under
gonna
two.
switch. Yeah, the Gold Cup is gonna be a different roster, I believe. And then for
No,
the
but the
Nations
U.S.
League,
the U.S. came out with their list and they said their players for the Nations League is under 23.
oh,
I thought that's what I saw.
might have been. I mean, I'm not
That's where
completely sure.
also if they lose to a really young U.S. national team again like this one, and we have a bunch of
No, but ours
experienced
is
guys.
young too.
That's
I mean,
true, but we still have like little.
yeah,
We basically have our big guys.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Then we have the big guys. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think
Yeah, I think we edge it out. I don't think it's going to be a dominant performance. It never is
well, the guy that
nowadays.
they have from the dude that they have, the top scorer from
Oh, Balogun, is he coming?
he's coming. So that's gonna be interesting. Sendejas is also part of the list, I believe.
Yeah, so I think it is an under 23 squad. But
Yeah, we'll
that's going to be
find out,
really
Oscar.
interesting with Balogun. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out. All right, thank you for watching, everyone, and then we'll be back with another episode of Resortera Way.